I think it's probably a fair conjecture at this point to say that at the outset, Wendy Bacon and I may come at this topic from a slightly different point of view from Janet Albrechtsen and Gerard Henderson. I may be wrong, but I think that our differences in the way we began in journalism may inform our perspective on this debate. So what has Wikileaks done? And I'll commence with the obvious, most recent releases of the State Department cables, which are the nub of the current controversy. Wikileaks received a trove of about 250,000 documents from Bradley Manning, an Army private with access to classified and computerised material. That's the allegation. This material was made available by Wikileaks under some interesting and unusual agreements with 5 newspapers: Le Monde, El Pair, Der Spiegel, The Guardian and the Sydney Morning Herald.
In my recent summer holidays in rainy Queensland, I had intended to read John le Carré's new novel, Our Kind of Traitor, but instead I decided to read about Julian Assange and Wikileaks. And it strikes me that there are more subplots, as Richard has touched on, in the story of Julian Assange and Wikileaks than in any le Carré novel. Think about it. An Australian chap with a rather sad upbringing, homeschooled by his mother, believed that school would, after all, inculcate subservience to authority. He's a loner. He's convicted as a computer hacker in his youth. He's the author of a manifesto titled Conspiracy as Governance, and he sets up Wikileaks in faraway Iceland. This is a racing plot full of lots of big characters. There's John Pilger, the intrepid journalist, Geoffrey Robertson, the long-winded lawyer, and Jemima Khan as the willowy blonde. And then there's the evil empire, otherwise known as the United States of America, hunting him down. Actually, I made that last bit up. But the Julian Assange story, which I think is best told by The New Yorker in a piece which was published last June, has done this very interesting profile. And if there's one theme that underlies the Assange story dating well back before WikiLeaks was established, it's that his life is one long drama of just because I'm paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get me.
Now, there's no doubt that WikiLeaks has some deadly, and I mean this literally, enemies. But let me acknowledge at the outset that WikiLeaks has excited and inspired many millions of supporters. These are the citizens who recognise that WikiLeaks' fundamental contribution is to reignite the relationship between the media and the people, which is supposed to underpin democracy. And as we journalists are so fond of saying, close to the heart of this relationship is the idea that journalists have confidential sources and they keep the anonymity of these sources secret on behalf of the public right to know. WikiLeaks supporters are everywhere, as probably is worrying Janet, I think. The ABC reports that up on Sunshine Beaches, where we all should be, they're wearing T-shirts in support of WikiLeaks. No torture, no terror, just truth, and on the back, where truth becomes treason, we're in big trouble.
Julian Assange may have had a troubled youth when growing up in numerous abodes in Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria, but he was certainly fortunate to have been born some 4 decades ago, this for one obvious reason, and also due to the fact that Assange's emergence as an adult coincided with the age of narcissism, which afflicts contemporary Western society. And my colleague, my Sydney Morning Herald co-columnist, dealt with that, so I won't dwell on that point. But what's unusual and somewhat fascinating about this controversy concerning the right to know in Western democracies turns on the fact that here the argument is not between the left-inclined civil liberties lobby and such political conservatives as George W. Bush, Margaret Thatcher and John Howard. Rather, this is a dispute on the left of traditional politics, as John Pilger made clear in his cover story in the New Statesman on the 17th of January this year. In this article, the leftist journalist accused the left of Senator President Barack Obama's administration of attempting to, quote, corrupt the law and send Assange to a hellhole prison for the rest of his life as part of a campaign of, quote, the imperial mafiosi to suppress truth.